going on, everybody? And welcome to Doppler's Gear Garage. In case we haven't met, my name is Doug Doppler, and this show is about gear in my garage and, I don't know, B, C, D, E, note names and guitar techniques and all sorts of stuff. And in any case, I encourage anybody that's new to kind of get in and become part of the community in the chat. We love to kind of hear who you are, where you're coming from, and all sorts of stuff. We also have a little bit of a kind of a, I don't know, virtual unboxing of sorts, which is something that I don't normally do, but we're going to be doing more of on this show. And the reason being is that there's all sorts of cool gear that's showing up. You sure did, my man. Excellent, excellent. Brent, what time is it over there in Australia? Good to see you. Sunny, hello. Oh, right, I'm looking into the wrong camera. Right, I set this up for a different camera today. So we can have a little bit of access to the desktop because it's going to give us a better shot. So in any case, I'm so in the habit of looking at that camera. All right. Well, first of all, thanks for joining me. Again, I'm Doug. Paul, good morning. Great to see you. Hello, hello, hello. So a couple of things have happened over the course of this week. True to the name Doppler's Gear Garage, one of the important things that we talk about is gear. And the Nano Cortex has just dropped, and the folks at Neural DSP, since this is actually also appearing on YouTube, it is probably important to say that, in a sense, this particular live stream is sponsored because the folks at Neural DSP were kind enough to send this along for me. I am super excited about this box. Just in case you haven't heard, this is the second product in Neural DSP's line of the Quad Cortex. So this is the Nano Cortex, and I absolutely love that. It's small. It's easy to use. There is no screen, so if you happen to be, I don't know, maybe over 50, you don't have to be kind of like, We're going to go through some tones. I'm going to spend some time playing through it. I'm going to tell you what I love about it. I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about what some of the other folks in the marketplace have talked about, what they don't like, what I may or may not agree with. But, here's the thing. Anytime there's a new piece of gear, what you want it to be isn't always what it is. What you expect it to be isn't always what it is. For me, this box was everything I expected and hoped it would be, and more. Or dare I say less. All right, so in any case, hey, a couple more people to say hello. Michael, good morning, great to see you. As I recall, you're in Florida, right? Is that where you're based? Someplace sunny. Hey, how you guys doing, everybody, with this crazy storm going on? Tony Lucchese, come on. Yeah, what's that? What's in the box? Chris Alexander, I'm so glad you could make it. By the way, Chris, over my right shoulder there is something I kind of left on frame specifically for you. And one of these weeks, we're definitely going to fire that up. So I don't need to explain to Chris what that is, but for the rest of y'all out there, that is a Randall stereo power amp that I've had since the 90s. And below that is basically the Randall, what are you, RE100, what the heck is that? But it's basically the preamp section from the dime bag Randall amp. And so that collectively is basically the equivalent of the three heads that are waving at me from the other side of the room. So as I've mentioned previously, I'm in the process of mapping out the rigs for this rigs. It's going to be a course. I've got this amazing person that's going to be helping me out with a huge amount of the content. I'm not ready to reveal their name yet, but it's going to be huge. So the idea is we're going to put together some different rigs, and fairly certain that the Dime rig is going to be in there simply because so many people were influenced by Dime. He had such a great sound, and it's solid state, right? Speaking of solid state, right behind me is another new acquisition. That is a Roland Jazz Chorus JC50. So that is basically a half a JC120 minus 10 watts, if you will. And what's neat about that is one of the main sounds that I use in the studio, both for the forthcoming instrumental and vocal albums, is a CE1. I've put my CE1 away. No, it's over there, but it's in the box. So it's the original kind of old school OG chorus that everybody loved. Joe Satriani used to use that as the stereo split between his Marshall. So if you saw him on the Surfing with the Alien tour, that's what he would have been using. So in any case, that is what's in there, but it's a mono version of it. And the thing about it when you're using this the JC120, because it's stereo, one side has no modulation, the other is like a drunken sailor going, "Rrr, rrr, rrr." And so what's neat about that, as I hoped would be the case, it just is that perfect blend. You turn the chorus on and it's just kind of in the perfect spot. Sitting below that is the matching cabinet to my Bandmaster reverb head and cabinet that's over there. And I picked that up, both of those, at a great store in the Sacramento area called Music Go Round. I could not have been treated any better. They had no idea who I was. I am a legend in my own mind, but for the rest of the world, I'm just some guy off the street. They were so nice and so cool. And for those of us that remember what it was like to walk into a music store and have an amazing experience where people just treated you like you're just part of their family, I was like, if I lived in the Sacramento area, I'd be there. They'd be like, I'd be at the door in the morning. It's like, can I come in? It was just such a cool thing. We talked about Uli John Roth and Michael Schenker, and I didn't mention any of the fact that I taught at Uli's camp. A bunch of you guys know that. And I opened for Michael Schenker, but I was just there, just hanging out, just being a dude, and it was so much fun. Put in the chat if you miss hanging out at old school music stores. All right. Also, speaking of which, power supply showed up from the good folks at Replay Guitar Exchange. There we go. And actually when I'm powering the Quad Cortex, and I know most of the people here are just like, get on with the Quad Cortex. So I'm going to do that very shortly, other than to say, I also had a great experience at Replay Guitar Exchange. They have a bunch of, as the name implies, one of the best names in the business, Replay Guitar Exchange. So if you've got a guitar that you want to flip, but just as importantly, if you're looking for something that's used, they have an amazing selection. All right, let me just very quickly say, without actually drawing you in, Griffin, great to see you. Palm Springs, even better. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Living on that aquifer. I love that. Okay. My mom, rest her soul, had a place in Palm Desert. So spent many, many, many a warm, sunny, and winter day there. So excellent. Anil, great to see you, my friend. Diamond Smiley, you're the best. All right, John, good morning. David, hello. Hello. Yes, I am a legend in my own mind. All right, so here's the deal. I'm going to just live dangerously, and I'm going to pull up a track here, and I'm just going to go for it, and you're going to get a chance to hear the Neural DSP Nano Cortex live in action. And the thing that's great about this, it's stupidly easy to use. I'm going to once I play through this thing, I'm going to talk through very briefly, but in enough detail so that you could plug this thing in just like I did and just go, okay, I know my way around. And again, if you happen to be, I don't know, over 50, actually, I think I was 40. A buddy of mine said, when you turn 40, you're going to need glasses. And when I turned 40, I needed glasses, not full time, but to read stuff because it happens. And the great thing about this is I think these are 1.5s, I can see everything that's on there. But most importantly, once you learn a couple of push button functions, it's stupidly easy to switch between sounds. It's also got knobs that you don't have to go into some menu to get to change their function. There's just a bass, mid, and treble control. There's a gain control. So you're like, holy cow, you want to toggle between two presets here or two presets there? Great. You want to hold that down and turn on the tuner? Great. Once the tuner's on, do you want to mute your input? Great. You want to toggle between the effects? Great. It's so easy to use. And there is an app that goes along with it, but I purposely, for better or worse, have not used the app yet. I've got the app for my Quad Cortex, but the whole point of this is it's so easy to use. So let's just jump into making some music, and let's see what happens here. This is a song called Atmosphere, and this is from the forthcoming album called Swagger, and it is my understanding that my guest on this track is going to be the one and only Andy Timmons. But not on this version. So let's see how we do here. All right. And I'm going to mute my microphone here. And gosh darn it, I need to do something here. So remember to unmute it because that would be a dangerous thing because I've done that before. All right, let's see if I can do this. remembered. How about that? Let's get to the right screen over here. Okay. All right. Well, good morning. Dr. Phil, great to see you. Hello. Okay. Let's see here. First of all, great sounds with the ability to capture OD pedals. There we go. So, all right. So let's jump right in. And I probably need to tune this just real quick. So let's talk about what this box is and what it isn't. So, Digital Viper, who are you again? Please remind me. Give me your first name there. Oh, no. I should know your nick, but as I've gotten older, I'm worse with names and even worse of translating nicks into names. Gosh darn it. All right. Before we do that, though, it is a very important thing that we must do before any of that. It's time to, ladies and gentlemen, that's right, we got to raise them up. So first of all, let me know where it is you're coming from if you haven't already and what it is that you're drinking. I'm at the last little bit of my Optavia shake with some Pete's coffee. Griffin, my apologies. It was just easier to get to my Pete's this morning. Nothing personal. I'm loving that great New Orleans coffee you sent along. Okay, let me dig right into this. I will do my best to keep my eye on the comments, but I may just kind of riff on a few things here as well. Oh, interesting. Oh, so what? The YouTube thing isn't streaming? Hang on a second. Thank you for that heads up. I did set up my live stream, and I did believe I selected the right input, but that would give me a quick moment, and let me take a look at all of this good stuff. Why? Let me get to... Sorry, folks, a little technical moment here. Interesting. Why am I not seeing that in my menu items? Okay, give me a quick second, ladies and gentlemen. Really appreciate that little... All right, so let's take a look. YouTube says it's streaming. So let me get over to my event. Nope, YouTube shows that it's streaming, and I'm seeing comments coming in from there. Okay. Looks like it's okay. All right, thank you. No, I always appreciate that feedback, and it is obviously something that matters greatly. All right. Right, I can see some YouTube icons here, but really appreciate that heads up there. Thank you, Dr. Phil. All right, so here's the thing. This box, when I saw it visually before it showed up, I was like, okay, as it promises, it's about yay big. I would say 4 inches by 6 inches. My measuring tape usually is in the spot that it's designated for, but I've been doing some other things, like prepping for tonight's gig. By the way, I don't have the tape across the front of this because I don't like the controls on this amp. I do this when it sits in the road case such that the settings don't get changed. So one of the things you can do is you can put some painter's tape across the top of your piece of gear, and every so often it will discolor whatever kind of materials your amp or cabinet has been covered in. But the thing that's great about this is I don't want to lose my settings pulling the rack on and off, and I've had that happen before. So this is a really kind of foolproof method, but I tell you what, we'll do the big reveal now, and boom. So, you know, again, we want to keep our settings set, and yeah, you can put a piece of tape along the top and kind of write where things are, which is rather smart. But in terms of the graphic EQ, losing your precious curve, and I will go in there and I will write that with pencil, but just for business and giggles. All right. And Albert, hello. We look forward to seeing you sooner than later. Storm dumped 5 to 6 inches of rain. Holy cow, I'm glad your school was going. Mike Rand, a little boogie action there for you. All right, Quad Cortex, Nano Cortex. So first of all, the box, what's in the box, really straightforward. Their packaging is absolutely gorgeous. This box is just kind of this, non-shiny black. It's just, you open it up and it's all gooey. The thing's kind of peering out there. I mean, this costs money. You know, they've got this kind of embossed silver shiny stuff going on. You know what? It matters. You get the feeling from the first moment that is a quality experience. There's a USB-C cable, sticker, QR code to get to the quick start. And so here's the thing, is if you're thinking about getting one of these, I should be able to give you the Cliff Notes version of everything that I learned. But I went out, first of all, they've got an hour-long demonstration that's kind of a deep dive on this with their native guy whose name I've forgotten. One of the best gear demonstrators I've ever seen. A brilliant player playing across a ton of styles. And, it's just stupidly easy. The most important thing that I'm looking for when I plug into something is like, hey, can I get my vibe going easily? And with me, the bonding factor was pretty much instantaneous. It was like, okay. The other thing that for me, again, this is, I'm going to jump ahead ever so slightly, but this is so relevant to what we're talking about. My dear friend, Chris, always brings forward Chris's questions. I guess I should show some respect here and just say, hey, Chris, thank you so much, as always. So we're going to jump into that as it relates to these types of boxes. And one of the questions he brought through that I just love is that you're well-versed in almost all monitors. Could you rank them in ease of use, tones, and features? So I'm not going to do all of that in this moment, but I am going to say in terms of the features on this, what in particular is appealing. And I am, sooner than later, I'm going to do a YouTube video on what to look for in a model, and I'm probably going to answer that when we formally get into Chris's questions. But the thing about this is there is no power supply included in the box. So you've got to power it either with pedal board power or, in this particular case, that one spot that arrived. I wanted to use that because I've got length. I actually keep about 6 feet from where I am. I have a True Tone one spot isolating power supply that's kind of mounted sideways on my studio desk. So I've got cables that I can power up a pedal anytime I want to with ease. But getting it all the way over here was a little bit of a different thing. And I absolutely love the one spot, plug them into, or I should say True Tone one spot, plug it into your power supply. You've got great power. One of the other things, in case you've ever had this experience, when you're either powering via USB or you're using USB for sending information and doing edits to a device, sometimes you'll hear this sound that just happens. It's one of the artifacts of USB. Maybe my Mac, so it may not happen on maybe if you've got a PC, but you'll notice that happen. And so I did try to power this up via USB-C, and it powered up just fine, but I did get that noise. I'm not going to attribute that to this device because it's something I've experienced before, but it's something that you probably want to keep in mind. So I am also powering it through a CalDigit hub that has the ability to, when I'm shooting with my fancy cameras and editing off of cards versus shooting into Ecamm Live, that's how I can get to my card reader really easily. It's also got USB-C and other forms of power and connectivity. However, if it's going to kind of create that sort of noise there, it's probably going to do it off the back of the computer as well. And again, this is something I've had happen. All right, so basically, as I recall, it's DC 9 through 12 volts, so not a lot of power required. I do not remember how many milliamps, but it was pretty low. All right, in terms of the sound, let me bring my output volume down. First of all, I control my studio volume. Let's see if I can do this without breaking anything. From this is the biggest waste of an Apollo twin in the world, unless you just want to be able to control your output level. But the other thing is I can control the output level. I'm going to bring this up a little bit. I can control the entire output of this. And this is one of the other things that I really loved about the ergonomics, if you will, of this device. You just kind of want, as you go from left to right, this last guy to be the volume. And gosh darn it, that's exactly what it is. And kind of as you think, all right, as I think about controls, bass, middle, treble, sure enough, bass, middle, treble. There's your gain up there. So you kind of like, it's really easy to see what is what. Okay, so I actually created 2 presets. So this is kind of the second preset I created. And to toggle between the different presets, let's do that. Let me bring the volume down, and you can level things up in there, and I'm sure if I stored that, actually what I don't know is if the level control saves. So let's find out what happens when we do this. No, I bet that's a global level control. I don't know. Let's find out. So you just hit one button and it saves it. No, I'd say that's an active level control. So you got to do a little. Okay, so this is one of the places, as we just discovered, and I love doing this in real time, where the app is going to be really valuable because there's some deeper things you can do inside the app. The volume of those two presets is obviously disparate. It's not something I tried doing before because I literally started with this sound here. I was like, oh, heck yeah. Let me walk in through what we've got. So basically, over here, this guy, you just turn it, and it walks you through 1, 2, 3, 5 banks of captures, basically amps, right? And then up here, you push this little push button, and it walks you. Sorry, my bad. This guy, you turn it, it walks through 5 different captures that are organized when you push this little. No, I got it right. This guy, sorry, you turn this guy. There's 5 little lights here. You probably can't see them. Right there. And there's one that's lit up. So as I turn this guy, actually, let me demonstrate this. So I'm walking between 5 different captures. Sorry for being an idiot. Capture number 1. Number 2. Number 3. Number 4. Which is the one that I like. And number 5. And the thing that really blew me away about the main demo that I saw, and I will keep an eye on comments. By the way, if you've got a question so I can see it, type the question mark 3 times before it. And that way, as I'm scanning here, because I'm going to try and do a little bit better job than I normally do, staying focused on stuff. I want to be on top of the chat, but there we go. There's a question. I will bring that in. Anthony, what's going on, my man? So this is the Nano Cortex going straight into my computer. Now, I have probably a little tiny bit more volume. That is if I turn my mic off. But it's Nano Cortex from the good folks at Neural DSP. Okay, so the deal is, now this little guy push buttons between 5 banks of captures. So this one was kind of toggling between the different captures inside the various banks. And as you cascade between the different banks, they go between lower and higher gain. So I am on the kind of 3rd of 5. So this is going to get more distorted. In fact, I'm going to bring my level down just a little bit. This is the gain control. I'm going to back that off a little bit. All right, let's move over to the next sound. Okay, now this goes to the cleanest bank. I'm going to bring the treble up a little bit. Bring the bass down. Bring the mids up a little bit. Next, let's go through some different sounds that are in the. All right, so now I can back off the treble there and bring the bass back up. Let's see, and then I'm going to turn the delay off. So basically, this little push button here toggles between the 5 different effects, and then as I get over to the delay here, and there's just a little status, I can turn the amount up or down. But in this case, I'm just going to hold it down. And it bypasses. So there is my kind of, and this guitar, by the way, has a 3-way pickup selector, bridge. All right, now, one of the things that you're going to notice, there's a really long decay on the reverb. That's one of the things that you can adjust inside the app. And it's arguably, this is kind of the main preset that I spent a lot of time until I went over to the other preset and started farting around with it. That one had a much shorter reverb on it, but I prefer, get over to the reverb. I'm going to turn the reverb up so you get. Now, this is preset number 2 that I've modified and saved with my own sound, but this was as I was watching his demo. He went to, so literally just the second stock preset, which again I've modified. Like, okay, so this is $549 US or something really close to that. It just makes you want to play guitar. So per Chris's question, kind of like, features and all of that, first and foremost, when I heard him play that second preset, I was like, oh, I know exactly where I'm going to start. Flipping easy use so long as I could remember which one of these buttons does what, and I had it right the first time. This toggles between the different sounds in a bank, which makes sense, and this toggles between the different gain banks. It's just stupidly easy to use. You don't need a menu, and there's no touch screen. For those of us that are a little bit older, this is great. I need to kind of find out a few things about this, but I am very tempted, I'll use that word, to make a video around this, around 5 rigs that I would build around this. Because for me, I looked at the form factor, I immediately went, okay, because I'm in rigs mode, I'm thinking, like, all right, what components am I going to gather around this? One of the first things that I would think about using is I've got a pair of Line 6 power cabs upstairs. Boom, so it's like, You then have the stereo spread. You can get them, separated distance-wise. They also have a direct out. One of the drawbacks of this thing is there's just 2 quarter-inch outputs. That's it. It's got function capability, which is one of the greatest things. If you got a room full of amps, this right here is your kind of like take it everywhere. There's a lot of talk about Tonex, which I do not yet have. I can't wait to get my hands on that and get the Satriani unit about it. Satriani sounds on it. But the thing about this particular box is that there is a vibe and a sound that the Neural DSP gear has. If you spend any time with their plugins like the Plini and Archetype Petrucci and Corey Wong, they've just got great sounds. And more importantly, again, when you pick up your guitar, you just want to play. That's the whole point. I'm a huge proponent and fan of Line 6. When I play at church, it's basically me and the Helix, and I'm done. Whatever guitar, I basically have a preset from worship tutorials that I think I might have modified a little bit, but it's basically one of their presets. I did a little bit of this. My whole thing normally is a stereo delay, dotted eighth and quarter note on one side, but not so kind of chicka, 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 so you can really hear it. So I don't need to tap tempo, which again is another one of the features this doesn't have. But I just I just love it. So there will be things about this box that some people won't like. So let's see if I can go through this. The Layla gear over my right shoulder is this. Hey, you know what? I actually am going to do an unboxing. Okay, so this is a box that Mason from Vertex Effects told me about. It's called a P-split, and it basically is a passive splitter in case you want to go one cable out and split it between 2 different amps. This right here from my good friends at Dana B. Goods, the U.S. distributor for Layla. Gosh darn it, I've always wanted to do an unboxing thing, but it always seems, I don't know, a little pretentious. So we're just going to believe that in the spirit of fun, I can get inside this thing without dropping my guitar. This matters, by the way, to what we're talking about here, is this solves one of the big problems people are going to have. And if you get one of these, you're going to probably want to have one of these guys right here. This right here is the P-split stereo. And I guess I've kind of become a Layla endorser, which is kind of cool. So this is the P-split stereo. And I bought it for a bunch of recording things and also for a bunch of the rig things that I'm working on. I almost said his name, not, with my good buddy. But this is the P-split stereo. And this guy here is how you take those 2 outputs and magnify them to 4. And then I think you also get another direct out, but I'd be speaking off the top of my head, so that could be incorrect. But the idea is this will allow you to come out of those 2 outs and have 2 more. And so that's the way you kind of go, okay, let's route the audio in more than just 2 places. And that is, arguably one of the biggest deficits of this particular device for some folks. Lack of tap tempo. If you're a church worship musician, doesn't have tap tempo. When I play at church, like I said, I use a dotted eighth and quarter, but they're kind of set in the background enough that I almost never tap tempo. I know that's sacrilege for some, but that's just kind of what I do. It does not have a compressor. One of the other things that people don't like about it, that I'm kind of like, it actually is kind of one of the cool things about it for me, is that, first of all, there's a crap ton of people on here. Hello. So one of the things that I do love about this that some people hate is there's just a set of order in terms of effects. And one of the reasons that they did that is they're more or less treating it like scenes. So you can switch from sound to sound instantaneously without getting a drop in sound. And for those of you that have been in the modeling game for a while, you know that can be an issue. So the order of effects, let's see if I can get it right. And this little push button just toggles you between them. Goes noise gate, which on the higher gain settings is very useful. Neural does a great gate. They do a, hang on. So I am now going to engage. take the reverb off. Trail stays on, even once I kill it. I'm sure I could find a use for it. Hang on, let me get to a... little more hair. Actually, this is cool. So I'm kind of crafting a tone on the fly. So I'm push buttoning over till I get to my delay, turning my delay on. That's the, again, this one encoder controls. It's just the whatever the main parameter that's the global parameter for whatever effect you're on. So this is just the volume for the delay. So you without the app, you can't fine tune any of that stuff, which for some folks is a thing. But as Ola in his video was like, hey, once I'm on the gig, I'm here. And if I'm here, then I pull out the app. So I'm kind of like, whatever. I know there's some great, oh, thank you, Kevin. I know there's some great comments. So I'm going to try and take a moment and grab those. But I want to stay on kind of walking through some, a little more delay. All right, you know, I want a little bit of verb on there. All right, now I'm going to get over here. I want something higher gain than that. So now I'm turning this rotary guy here that toggles between the banks. Sorry, no, my bad. This toggles between the presets that are basically different captures. And I'm going from lowest, as I push this guy from lowest gain. Ooh, that's kind of... Jump into the comments here real quick. That's loaded with gunk funk. What's going on, Tom? You know, I was just quoting you a little bit earlier when I was talking about the tape, and I kind of had my untaping thing. And as I mentioned before, anybody, by the way, anybody just jumping in case we haven't met, my name is Doug. This is Doppler's Gear Garage every Saturday at 9 a.m. on Facebook and YouTube. We talk about guitars and the latest and coolest and not latest, but still cool gear. All right, let me jump in real quick. Adding that low octave, make it feel something. Isn't that just gooey? So here's the thing. This is like, in terms of the way the effects are set, it's just like the old school for those of us that remember, and I actually never had one, but you remember the old plastic Boss pedal boards? Your pedals were in a particular order. You put them in the right order and you're done. They put it in the right order, they're done. Yeah, it would be nice to be able to move them around. What I don't know, and I'm going to test in real time here, is when I switch between presets. There you go. Spill over. It just makes me want to play. Take my money. Holy cow, just flip and take my money, seriously. And the thing that Neural does so well, listen to that. Just like, so what I also need to read you in on is that is the Lexicon 224. That's basically what that's the reverb that they've got in here. So as of now, one of the complaints people have had is like, look, the effects, they're kind of set. You can't change them. You get one analog delay, and all you can do is control the parameters. You get one reverb. The analog delay flippin' sounds amazing. The reverb sounds amazing. If I were going to change anything about this particular guy here, I'd probably make the room a little bit smaller, just so it's not quite so infinite. But like I said, when I heard their demo person, who's one of the best demo people I've ever seen in my life, go to preset number 2, and they went to that sound, I was like, oh. And so that's basically where I started. All right, so I saw an old Boss pedal display board for sale. I forgot what they were asking. If I had the pedals, I might have gotten a second mortgage for it. So, I mean, there was a day, that thing had a little top, had a little handle. That's how people rolled. It was genius. So, let's talk about form factors, and I apologize. Whoa, wait a second. Hey. What's going on, my man? That is for you. Great to see you. Hello. All right. You got to know about this box, because without calling John out, because we want to treat him like a regular dude, but he knows some dudes that aren't regular dudes. We'll just leave it there. This, not to slight any of the other things that are floating like down in my rack there. So this is the Nano Cortex, right? And the funny thing is, John, I had so I'm doing a rigs course with a guy that we know. I'm not mentioning his name. But basically, one of the things we talked about was the conversation that led to somebody using going modeling only. We'll just leave it super low key. In any case, this little box, in terms of a hotel room box, so I was getting to this thing about kind of the form factor and being able to use it in different types of rigs. First of all, one of the things that I love about this, and I will keep an eye on the comments here as best I can, but I'm famous for kind of getting distracted. So I'm going to try not to do that today. Great feedback, but I have a tendency to feedback on the feedback. I'm just going straight into my Universal Audio Apollo interface. Again, one of the other things that I mentioned, for some folks, just having the 2 outs, because that's all you get, is a little bit of an issue. That's where something like the Layla P-split stereo that gives you, you can basically replicate those 2 stereo outs. And again, as I mentioned before, I need to just get back into the details. I also think it gives you just a kind of a second, just a direct signal that you can use for stuff like reamping as well. But that is, the thing about that is that, you know what, this is not what we're talking about today. That is to say, if you got 2 outputs, you want to turn them into 4, you need to basically run to your DAW, and maybe you want to, be running some sort of powered monitor rig. That's how you do it. All right, so 5 different rigs. I'm almost undoubtedly going to shoot a video on 5 rigs around the Nano Cortex. John, for you and quote-unquote your friends, this is the ultimate hotel room gig. I love all the different form factors that are out there, but this is just so easy to use. It's just like a stomp box, and the effect, just instant tone. All right, so then, as I mentioned before, a pair of power cabs, another great way to make this thing loud. The other thing that some people have complained about, which I think is a legitimate complaint, is it doesn't have an overdrive built into it, or a fuzz, or so there's no kind of drive stop. However, like let me turn the delay and the reverb off, and again, to go through the 5 different effects types, you just kind of have this little push button over here. You hold it down to turn off. In this case, the 4th effect is delay. I push it down again, and I hold it down, and I turn off the reverb. Dry as a bone. Let me turn this. So, I mean, it's just like you're instantly there. Let me back the gain off a little bit. I'm going to go to a different. Let's see what you sound like. So I was just going to a different capture. I'm going to bring up the treble a little bit. Back that off a little bit. Bring the mid up. And I know when I bring the reverb back in. So my main amp these days is a Mesa Boogie Rectifier Badlander. And one of the things that I love about that is I can kind of go from a crunchy tone. That is let me turn all that goodness off real quick. It's not, I'm in the third bank of captures, 3 out of 5, so this is kind of the medium gain one. The gain is on 2 o'clock, and it goes more or less, if you will, from 6:30 to 5:30, so it's not a kind of a 360-degree deal. It's kind of like that to that, right? Better. Here it is, no gain. Here it is all the way up. There would have been a time where I was like, turn it all the way up, but I've gotten to a place where I really want something, and again, I'm about 2 o'clock. And then adding a little bit of the sweet sauce in there. So for me, the sweet spot where I'm living these days is enough. It's basically a crunch tone that I can solo with, right? It's not my highest gain setting. I'm going to switch banks. I'm going to go to switch captures. Oh, I like that. All right, I need a little less reverb. And I need some delay with all of that goodness. Bring the delay back in. Just like, seriously. All right, so it just sounds great. I really kind of like, holy cow. All right, so let me get down in the comments. Rick, great to see you, my man. Rock and roll ain't noise pollution. All right, I got to the second rig, I think. So one of the other things you could do, as I mentioned before, that people had that was a complaint was, okay, there's no drive settings in there. And that's kind of how I went down that rabbit trail. My apologies. Do you need a drive pedal when you got captures that sound that great and instant, with spillover, instant changing from preset to preset? I think the better question is why you would want a drive pedal. Now, that said, for people that have a particular favorite drive pedal, my King of Tone is not on the desktop at the moment, but I have, as I mentioned before, when I play at church, I use a Helix. The worship tutorial guys, there's a preset that I use of theirs, and it's just basically, I just don't change anything, and it's got a bunch of, got King of Tone, and I think Timmy, and then kind of some other obvious House of Worship drive, and I just, it's kind of I stack those to get a little bit more gain and a little bit more volume, and I turn it on and off over the course of the service. It's just like I'm using it like a pedal board, right? So that gets us to rig number 3, which would be placing this in a pedal board. Now, one of the complaints that people have is that it does not have an effects loop, and I can see why, compared to maybe like HX Stomp, that would be, for some folks, a little bit of a deal killer. Again, also doesn't have tap tempo, which for some worship folks, I get that as well. That said, placing a drive pedal and some other pedals before this, basically using this as an amp, if you will, like I use this rig here, which is basically, it's an amp, and you can't see the, well, hold on. Come on. Get out of there. It's an amp, and then down below, there's my Axe effects, right? So, and by the way, this is the rig of doom. If you're looking to terrorize your neighborhood, look no further. So, for the kind of vocal band I'm working on, I'm spending just a huge amount of time with the Badlander. I absolutely love that. I actually have bought, as you saw last week, a pair of 5-band graphic EQs that I'm using in the loop, and it's that last little bit of fine-tuning the tone. So again, I love a sound that's more, hang on, let me back off the gain. Kind of rise that line between crunch, but you can go to lead. I just flipping love that. So this amp is just, it's a barbecue. You just plug in and it just fries anything in its path. It's got dual graphic EQ. This is the Power Stage 700 power amp, in case I'm feeling like I need 350 watts per side, which with the tall boogie cabinets back there, which I'm going to bring both cabinets tonight. And I will probably be playing in stereo. In fact, that's exactly what I'm going to do tonight. Just made up my mind. Just it's a lawnmower than anything, and it's the way it's just going to chew up. But it also weighs a crap ton. So getting back to this guy, putting a pedal board together around it, rig number 3. Rig number 1 is just using it directly into your DAW. Rig number 2 is using it in combination with some sort of powered monitor like Line 6 Power Cab works great. Then there's rig number 3, using it in a traditional pedal board, and then again figuring out, I should say, using traditional pedals in front of it, which means you're going to get your compressor, that is. You're going to get your drive, and then anything else you want to put in front of it, like a wah-wah, right? And then kind of using this, and then so the reason I pulled this out is like, this is effectively the way the effects are done, is kind of like this amp with that Axe effects in the loop, right? So that's kind of the way you would treat this. So everything that you would put before it, it does that, except for the fact that, this amp was never designed to have kind of some effects in it. This does, right? So I would treat it like an amplifier with an effects loop with delay and reverb that you can turn on and off, and then the stuff that you put in the front end of that. And with that in mind, then, again, you could run that into your DAW, but given the fact that, you can do so much with the different captures, and the gain, there wouldn't be the obvious need, in my opinion. I love using drive pedals, except for when I don't have to. And then there's no need to, right? If you got a great sounding tube amp, generally speaking, you don't need drive pedals unless you want them, right? All right, so then once you've kind of got that going, how do you power it up? One of the ways you can power it up, one of the rigs that I built was and it's still in offsite storage, was a JC120, that's the 50, with two 12s that I replaced with Celestion full range live response speakers. And that enables you to basically not have to turn off the built-in IRs that are in there, and it just allows you to have 60 watts per side. It's in stereo. It's a nice form factor. Boom, you're ready to go. All right, I think that's rig number 4. Rig number 5 would potentially be, I hadn't gotten that far, but if we needed to, would be, well, actually, I talked about putting it on like a pedal board. Then what are you going to run it into? So if you're going to do that, you could use something like one of the power stage amplifiers, right, for your raw power, and then you could run it into any type of cabinet. So let's just say you've got a favorite cabinet of yours, and you want to use that. Well, then you go into the app there, and you turn off the IRs, and then you just use your favorite Marshall or Boogie cabinet, right? And you're good to go. Steve Greenleaf, hello, my friend. Great to see you. Hello, hello, hello. Buenos dias, amigo. Okay, so I've noticed the comments have dried up a little bit. So hang on a second. What's going on? Love that snare, though. Look at that. That's awesome. Okay. So let's see here. First of all, any thoughts or comments? Anybody? Bueller. Hello. Am I rambling? Have I lost my mind? Yes. All right. Okay. So Brett, thank you. So again, to answer your question, one of the complaints that some people have had is that of the set effects which are in order, and they're set in order, are noise gate, transpose, modulation, which sounds really good. In one of his demos, he totally nails the guy from Neural Nails, Purple Rain. It's just like, there it is. So it's basically the CE1. Then it's got delay, and then it's got reverb. And it's really, if you can't get the job done with five effects and great sounding captures, there are other things that are, and I understand why when I say can't get the job done, I mean in terms of like, hey, let me just give me a Swiss Army knife to kind of get me through whatever I need to get through. I can understand all that. One of the things that I didn't mention yet is that there is a 1/4-inch jack for expression or MIDI. And the Layla pedals, a number of them, they use 1/4-inch to MIDI. So basically, it is another way that you can control this. And so what I have not experimented with yet is that little deal. The other thing is that the fulcrum, I am going to step off frame. I told myself I wasn't going to do it today, which of course meant that, well, I wasn't listening. But our good friend Sonia from 901 Sound, I think she's at Guitar Fest or whatever that is in Germany today, made this device. And my whole thing, my premise today was I just wanted to let people hear this box. And I see your question, Albert, so give me just a moment here. It's a great question. This, as I said to Sonia, is a desktop equivalent to a mouse. So this is a 2-plane expression. I don't know yet whether you can express 2 different effects at the same time. Now, this is one of the interesting things about this is that as people like, well, I only get one. First of all, the delay itself sounds great in my opinion. Number 2, the reverb, Lexicon 224 has become my favorite reverb in the world because you've heard it on a million records and it just sounds and feels great. But, you can't, from the face of this, control those parameters. That said, yet, because they can update the operating system behind, or the firmware, I should say, for this guy, there are things that they're probably going to be able to do in the future that if you wanted to swap out, say, for example, and this is where it gets a little messy in terms of people sharing sounds, right? But if you wanted to swap out instead of the pitch transpose, you wanted to have an overdrive. Arguably, people would rather have had an overdrive in there. And, their compression in the Corey Wong and the Archetype Plini plugins is just flipping great. But the point being, so I don't know, and again, the whole reason I wanted to do this demo the way I did today was I was really tempted to hook this up so Sonia could see it, but she's at the Guitar Fest thing anyway. But one of the rigs I, again, will build of the rigs I'm going to potentially build for this video, which I'm pretty close to just deciding I'm going to do it, would be just the studio rig, but having Sonia's controller here that you can use as a tactile mouse to just control, again, your delay on one axis ideally and the reverb on the other. I don't know whether you can express multiple things at the same time via the expression pedal jack. my guess would be in this current version of the firmware, you can only control one. However, the ability to have that kind of tactile control is great. And so for all the things that it does, I just love. And for all the things that it doesn't do, some of them can be addressed through firmware updates, and I think they're going to do that. So here's an interesting thing. All right, so first of all, well, okay, hang on a second. Let me just do a couple of things, John, and I will answer that with fingers in hand, so to speak. For those of us that live in Pro Tools, and those of us have friends who live in Logic, those of us who use Pro Tools know that Logic is a better MIDI application. But I love living in Pro Tools. It's kind of how I came up. I get into the interface in Logic, and I'm just like, I just want to lose my mind. I'm like, I'm out of here. It just looks like it was designed by an engineer, and I know there are a lot of Logic lovers out there. I love it. It's a great application, but if you're used to coming from the tape world and going into the digital world through Pro Tools, and you kind of get into it, there's some really obvious things in the edit window that just don't kind of make sense. That unlike live, Ableton Live, you just kind of go in and you do, there's certain DAW-esque things, and I understand workflows are workflows, different conversation. That said, MIDI implementation for some folks is really important. So the Axe Effects has got phenomenal MIDI implementation. And part of this stuff, and John, I'm going to give you some tactile volume control changing things in just a moment. The ecosystem of the headspace of the Quad Cortex, I think, is a very internal ecosystem. The ecosystem of something like the Axe Effects is designed to sit potentially exactly where I've got. So when I was working with Maddie on the demos for the JP2C 112 combo, one of the really important things we wanted to map was MIDI functionality between the PBC6X as the controller, being able to switch parameters if I wanted to on the Axe Effects, being able to turn different stomps on or off if I wanted to, and in turn being able to send MIDI changes to the amplifier to get it to change its various states that can be controlled via MIDI, switching which EQ you're using. I mean, and so that global MIDI implementation for those of us when and where we want to use it is very important. In my main live rig, when I play live these days, I'm kind of a set it and forget it guy, simply because I get all excited about, like, oh, let me make it so I can tweak everything and adjust it for each song. And as I potentially do that in the studio with these songs, then I'll do that downstream. But the thing is that I hate the ideas I'm focusing on this instead of on this. So I have not messed with the MIDI setup yet. But again, at least there is some MIDI setup there. Robert, the short version is that I love the Boss GT1. Did I take it back upstairs? The GT1000 core. I spent a huge amount of time with that unit. I wrote a lot of the original demos for the 2 albums that I'm working on that unit. And when you've got something, so the GT1000 core is about that much bigger by another 2 inches in either direction. This guy again is about 4 by 6. That said, one of the things about Boss is their deep editor is clunky, but at least they've got a deep editor. It's just Line 6, when it comes to like the greatest deep editor in the world, they just own that, and they continue to own it, and they're great at it. I love these little kind of these knurled switches where you can feel as you're kind of turning between sounds, you get that tactile response. It's just one of the greatest features. If you haven't had a chance to massage the knurls of the Neural DSP Quad Cortex, it's just a little, rather than it being a foot switch, you turn it and you can feel it click into each one of those positions. It's just a great tactile experience. Now, per John's question, I did it a little bit as I was playing along with the track. I'm going to pull the track back up. I'm going to see if I can remember to, I'm just going to play along with the same track here. But it's going to be, I'm going to try and do slightly more extreme things. So I'm going to, that. All right. That's pretty good. So again, John's question was, what happens as you're kind of toggling between the sounds? Obviously, Jeff Beck is somebody I've spent countless lifetimes listening to, and the manipulation of the pickup selector, hit all three pickup selectors, right? This guy's just three-way, bridge, middle, and neck, and then riding the volume control. Here's the bridge. Middle pickup. Neck pickup. And so one of the things that modelers don't always do a great job on, John, thank you very much, appreciate it, don't always do a great job on is that ability to kind of shift gears between all the things that you would normally do with a tube amp, and in particular a great tube amp. And so that said, most of us, when the drums are banging around, we don't have a chance to kind of get into this kind of kind of space. And so a lot of things that we might say, oh, I really need this, when it comes time, when it's showtime, you actually You don't. It was actually kind of what Ola was saying about this pedal. Is like he just wants to use it like his amp. You don't go back and start tweaking stuff on the amp. Anyways, Mark Turvey, how you doing? Good to see you. Great to see you, actually, I should say. My neighbor buddy Juan, that I accidentally met at SAS G4 has one. Hoping to get over to his studio and take it for a ride. I think they're great. Look, to answer Chris's question again from Chris's questions, you gotta love that shot. You know, it was this, and I'm gonna actually take a moment here. I'm gonna answer that properly. You're well versed in almost all modelers. Could you rank them in ease of use, tones, and features? I'm not going to go as deep as I could on that now, but I am going to talk about, as succinctly as I can, the main things that you want. If you've got amps that you want to capture, this and Tonex, in my opinion, are at the head of the pack. I don't have Tonex yet. That's a buddy of mine is making an introduction. Chances are those are going to show up. The two different main form factors that people seem to be using will show up sooner than later. I do have a relationship with the folks at Quad Cortex. I do have a relationship with the folks at Fractal. I do have a relationship with the folks at Boss. I do have a relationship with the folks at Headrush. And so, you know, like pennies from heaven, these things have a tendency to appear around here. Very thankful, very grateful, and people know that there are people that I connect with. Thank you, that I can hopefully help spread the word. So the sonic signature of each of these devices, as much as the digital capturing and modeling technology has gotten great, they all do sound a little different. The Neural DSP vibe is got this. There's always a little tiny bit of really nice compression that's in there. I never feel like I'm having to work too hard for my lunch money, which has its pros and its cons. Well, like that amp right there, that is, you know, basically Boogie's take on a tweet. And a buddy of mine, Scott, worship pastor at my church that I was at a few years back, loaned me his Tele with a Bixby, and I was using basically a deluxe, a Tweed Deluxe that I had been sent, and no delay, no reverb, and it was like, there ain't none of this. And even when you turn all the good stuff off, and again, that's really easy to use. I literally unboxed this thing last night, right? But there's some nice kind of, if you will turn, you know, the thing that I love about the Badlanders is that you turn up the power amp section and you get this great kind of natural overdrive, and you get the sag from the amplifiers, where the magic in a lot of amps really lives. And that's why the power amp section is, for those who want to manipulate it that way, is so important. So that kind of, it's easy to play. But the downside is if I went from this and I picked up a Tweed, you know, of which there's a bunch of them around here, you have to work a lot harder, you know, on those amps. So it's a pro and a con. Sounds great, easy to use. I love the Line 6 stuff. I pretty much got everything that they've made. They're great. There's their rack unit down there. Kemper, I think, is one of the least user-friendly devices I've ever used. Using that thing from the face of the unit is harder to use than Boss's Deep Editor, which is just, it's a little clunky, where the Line 6 Deep Editor stuff from HD 500 days, it's just been great for, you know, 20 years, right? I literally think HD 500 is probably 20 years old now, right? And so the point being is that the collective things you want to think about to answer this are, one, how many little buttons and switches are you going to need to do what you need to do? That is to say, there's not a lot of buttons and switches on this, like a tap tempo, and be able to set different scenes and do a bunch of things from the face of these units. Kind of what those of us from the HTML world remember with WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get. But for what you see and what you get, it's flipping great. HX Stomp XL is probably the best form factor of anything that I've ever seen, because you get everything you get in HX Stomp with 6 extra foot switches. And it's just brilliantly designed. They've got a deep editor. They're constantly improving stuff. It's great. Once they kind of redid their cabs, it was a different universe, and there were some things that were wrong with the original cabs that I yelled at them for a long time that they finally fixed. I wasn't the only person yelling, but I was the most vocal because I'm like, hey, this is a problem you need to fix, and the ability to then manipulate the microphone and do all the things that you would do in the real world, they fixed. The fractal stuff, it's just great. I've got a buddy. He's the tech for Def Leppard. They're fractal only. And one of the best live sounds I've ever heard was those guys front of house. He very kindly gave me a pass. I got a chance to hang out with him. Thank you very much. Seats that were pretty much dead center, but far enough back that I wasn't hearing the drums from the stage, which can kind of mess your mix up. It was really kind of almost like that isosceles triangle that you're looking for in your home studio, the spacing between the monitors and you. And the sound was just amazing. And in particular, although Vivian is not his guy, first of all, you can't really go better than the solo from Photograph. So what I'm about to say has to be prefaced by the fact that, one, arguably the greatest rock riff of our time was Kirk Hammett, right? I don't care what people think about Kirk Hammett. I care about the fact one of the greatest rock riffs ever. Just period. Done. He could retire tomorrow, and that riff, he's elevated himself to that. So Photograph, the solo from Photograph, I mean, I remember watching MTV in the early days just kind of going, I want to do that. And it's just great, it's just great. That said, and the funny thing is Maddie, John Pertucci's tech, and I had this conversation about the fact that Adrian pulled out this gold top, and it was the best sound of the entire night. It was something about that guitar in the rig, just like, wow, and that will happen. There'll be certain things that will happen. I need to turn this down a little bit, but let me turn up some of the goodies here real quick. Oh, no, there we go. And again, so easy to use. That's not what I wanted to do. There we go. Turn the delay on. Get over to the reverb. Turn the reverb on. Thank you. This guitar doesn't speak great with every amp I own. But when it speaks with the right piece of gear, it's very special for me. So there is something every so often that there's just the right circuitry that goes together. That is each one of these has its own sound. The form factor, again, HX Stomp XL is more like this, but with 6 extra foot switches. Melissa, my dear wife, every so often has gotten tasked with carrying my Helix backpack. And I remember, a day or two afterwards, like, honey, what are those bruises on your leg? She says, that's from your backpack. Clonk, clonk, clonk. So, it's heavy. But, it's a thing, which also gets to me. I was thinking about this, and I'm sorry I'm not doing as succinct a list as I would like. Do you need a built-in expression pedal? So that's one of the great things about Helix. One of the great things about GT1000. And the GT1000 core, for folks who don't know, it's everything processing-wise is in the GT1000 in a desktop pedal. So again, we normally think, oh, I need it to be this big. Well, actually, having something that's desktop size and portable, John, as I was saying, chances are some of those guys, it's just it's so perfect for a hotel room. My guess is, judging by the width of it, I don't know about the height, probably not on the height, but you might be able to stick it in the cubby of a guitar case. But it's just, it's really, really groovy. I love the fact that it has traditional, you can power it off 9 volts DC, and you're not having to do that. And that's one of the comments that people said about some of the Line 6 stuff, is there is this proprietary power supply, not of, and or having to do other things to be able to power it in a pedal board situation. So I played at my buddy Chris Roach's guitar camp. My favorite little portable rig, there it is. That is my Mark 525. I stick that in a little. Do I have the photos of that up here? Yeah, here we go. I think that's it. That's partially it. I somehow have somebody's modal diagram in there. A different conversation, but basically that's that guy living inside a little suitcase. So you can just kind of wrap it in bubble pack and you can carry it on the airplane. So my whole thing was I was going to build this rig, HX Stomp, put it in the loop of that. But it would not power with my one spot because it's got a proprietary jack because of the power requirements. I had to borrow a power supply from Chris Rocha, which he had one because he's got all the other things that are in there. That's one thing that'll get you into trouble. The other thing, well, because I put together that rig though and used HX Stomp in the loop, and it was just awesome. Again, generally when I use the layer reverb, inside the DAW, I will use it so it does the automatically per the BPM of the session. It'll be dotted eighth and quarter. But you know when if you've just got it kind of so it's in the background there. And one of the things that John Cuniberti, who's the engineer and mix engineer on the two albums that I'm working on, said, they actually sometimes shy away from stuff because every so often, if somebody's late or early on a hit, all of a sudden you get this flamming. So he generally likes right around that 360 millisecond area. So, you know, it's a funny thing. You get all excited about tap tempo, and all of a sudden you're like, well, wait a second. What happens? And I saw this in the notes from somebody said something about their drummer speeds up and slows down, which is actually why they wanted tap tempo. For me, I'm kind of like, I don't care what the tempo of the song is, and I don't want to be down in the box. I just want to be focusing there. All right. There we go. The MIDI learning curve was steep initially, but it provides so much control for the small units. Oh, thank you very much. Let me answer this thing. So, all right. So, MIDI. It's a 4-letter word. So I almost said his name. So in the midst of this, let's see. I will do this. Let me just go here real quick. Thanks, Mike. So there are in this moment, and it will get trimmed down potentially. And me and my partner in crime for this rigs thing, we're the rig rats. So it's pretty cool. So one rig is the J35 Gibson into the Boogie. There it is, the Boogie acoustic amp. Whose name I'm going to forget. What the heck is that thing called? As well as potentially the Fishman one. The Fishman, you know, I have a very strong relationship with Mason Boogie. That amp's not in current production, so part of the thing we don't want to do is lead people up the garden path with something that they can't go out and buy at, dare I say, Sweetwater. So the Fishman Loudbox mini amps are phenomenal. And then using that with Origin Effect. Well, actually, I'm not going to go down through all the effects because that's going to get us there. Probably, I have to borrow it from my buddy Carlos. He doesn't know it yet. Do the Synergy rack because I think that's an important form factor that people are going to want to know strategically about doing that. The JMH is the James Marshall Hendrix. I have the JTM 45 reissued that basically they got one of Jimmy's amps in at Marshall, and they always check the serial number that, you know, of different amps, and they were like, oh, okay, you know, 16, and they're like, it was one of Jimmy's amps. They had the serial number, and there's one that's floating around that's a fraud. The one that got brought in was the real deal. So this is an actual trace of that circuit. It's got the KT88s, KT66s rather, and it is an insane amplifier. So we're going to build basically the Jimmy rig because that's one of the archetypes. Model Citizen is going to be one of the modelers, and then some of the different solutions that you can use around that. Potentially also incorporating some additional things to control that, right? AB is the idea of having kind of, you know, the early version of this type of thing was where you literally had to use two different amps, right? So it's either going to be the Marshall JVM 410H or the Mesa Boogie dual rectifier. I've got a Rev G dual rectifier. This is one of the most wicked amps ever. But the point being of just kind of like that beautiful warmth of the JC 120 juxtaposed to the Boogie. And again, if you're a fan of the Biscuit, of which I am, you know. All right, there we go. So again, then it's a Petrucci rig, like I did with the Mark II C Plus 112 combo. That's going to be in there because it's a complex rig. There's all the stuff happening in the front end. There's the 2 amps. Where the split is happening between the 2 amps is not an unusual place where stereo amps get split between them. It's going to be really, really cool. Puppet Master. The other Marshall that's staring at me is a Jose modded JCM 800, right? Yeah. So, and then I also have, I think you may be able to see it over there. It's a Mark II C+. So those of you who speak Metallica know exactly what we're going to do, and I'm going to. I can't guarantee it, but I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. At one of the Petrucci camps, there was a late night session with Maddie, John's Tech, and it was me, Maddie, and Ola, and I'm playing Ola's guitar, and I'm chunking through a JP2C, and Ola's adjusting the tone. It was chug heaven. Like I again, it was just one of those moments. Like I could quit now, and I would have hit one of the big bucket lists. The other one I will say was Phil Collin taught at one of the G3 camps, and I got a call, rest in peace, from Mick Brigden, Joe's manager, saying, "Hey, would you like to play second guitar for Phil Collin?" And I was like, yeah. So secretly, my fantasy it was like if I could play in any band, maybe it'd be Def Leppard. So and we got a chance to do whatever the heck it is. My brain's lost. But Hysteria, right? And so I played the rhythm guitar part, and then I played the second lead thing with Phil, who, by the way, can sing every bit as good as Joe Elliott. So all right, checkbox done. It was just an incredible experience. And the crazy thing is literally Joe Satriani is like 10 feet away. If you want to talk about pressure, you got Phil Collin. Need to stay focused on your parts. Got to watch your time. Got to play the parts right. And no more than 10 feet away on your side of the stage, Joe Satriani's just sitting there watching and listening in the little backstage cover. And I'm like, no pressure. None whatsoever. All right. In any case, I digress. So Puppet Master is basically recreating, that classic Metallica rig, and hopefully we'll get Ola to send some DI tracks that we can run into the front end of that. It's going to be nuts. And basically, that is the Mark II C Plus running the effects loop return of the Jose modded Marshall. What I haven't found out yet is which cabinet they were using, whether they were using a Marshall or Boogie cabinet. My guess is it would have been a Marshall cabinet. We're not absolutely positive we're going to do this rig, but this one's important. It's the Vi rig. Years ago, I demoed I teched for Steve Vai, and his rig for a number of years was basically 2 Carvins, and one would serve as the slave and one would serve as the master. So the stereo split happens in the effects loop send of the master head, and then goes out to and splits to both of those. And again, one of the guitar camps, I've still got the pedals over here, a pair of DD7s and a CH1, but it was a CH3, I thought. All right. Interesting. CH1, basically we recreated a smaller version of that, but using just Boss pedals. So it's probably going to be with that, such that it's kind of like it's a slightly, poor man's version. Back in the day, that was done with, there's one over there, an SDE 3000, and create the split. There's going to be a starter rig. Just kind of some very basic guitar, probably a Squire or an Epiphone. A very simple combo, and then the stomps that everybody needs to get started. Dimed is on here. I've got the trio of the Randall. What else? ES100? What the heck are those? Lost my mind. RM 100s, and then potentially doing it with the power amp is another way to go. I got a trio of the 412 cabinets, and then all the appropriate effects, including the Furman and that crazy, I can't believe I paid that much money, Rocktron noise suppressor, because anybody who wants one is obviously looking for putting together dime rigs. So they're super rare and they cost a small fortune. Probably going to do the SRV. I have a 64 Vibraverb. Gary Brower, the guy that works on my guitars and pretty much anybody in town, has one of the best sounding super reverbs ever. First time I saw Stevie Ray, he was using those together, and then using AB box and kind of all the appropriate effects, because that's such an archetype of a rig. It's got to be in there. Long notes. Probably using 2 Tone Master Deluxes, and one of the conversations I had with Corey, and I think I talked about this last week. We're having a little bit of work done here, so if you hear some background noise, that's why. But kind of using them, and his conversation with me, why he loves the sound of the Deluxe, but really, finds himself using a Twin, is because of the amount of headroom, the extra wattage, so you can kind of get the amp louder without it starting to have overdrive in the power amp section. But so I'm obviously that's going to be with a Strat and a Wampler compressor, and probably Corey's signature Wampler compressor, and probably that new overdrive he came out with. The EVH, we're going to probably again use the Jose modded Marshall, and then kind of build a wet dry wet rig using the 5150, or sorry, the SD3000 EVH pedal for the split for the wet dry red on that. The Doppler rig is going to probably be my 2 Badlanders and how I kind of put that together. And then I had a nice phone call from a buddy of mine in Marin that is who has the Dragon amp. And so we're talking about my potentially demoing that amp. And as it turns out, a certain guy, Joe, just got back from Japan, and sounds like that I'm going to borrow Joe's actual amp, which is, holy cow. All right. I digress, but the point being is these different rig styles, there is so much nuance around the way you go about crafting them. And there's just a lot to it. Talk about pressure. Hysteria, there we go. Thank you. If you get the Def Leppard gig and get rid of the bass player and get me the gig, I'll give you 90% of my show pay. If you get me the gig, I'll give you 99% of my show pay. But I've forgotten the song, so I wouldn't get the gig. In any case, I had a funny thing happen. Actually, years ago, speaking of Steve Vai and teching, he did a show at the Belly Up in Solana Beach, and there was a guy, there was his guitar tech at the time, who ended up being, I think, Billy Gibbons' tech, and he's now the bass player in ZZ Top. So Elwood, I went to ZZ Top. The keyboardist in both my vocal and instrumental albums is Peter Keys from Skinnerd. So we went and hung out with Peter backstage, and then on my way back, I see Elwood. I was like, I met you when you, and it seems a little strange, like, I met you when you were teching for Steve Vai, and I didn't say it like that. It's like, I met you 30, 40 years ago when you were teching for Steve Vai. And he said, hey. And I saw the wheels of time reeling back, so it was just funny. Yeah, I believe it's in D. I believe I won't get the gig, but that's okay. All right. Matt King, what's going on, my man? Great to see you. All right. So, I think we've sufficiently. Because if I start playing this thing again, I'm just going to end up in a guitar babble, and we need not to do that. So this week on Theory Geek Thursday, we talked about the note names. Actually, let me just turn that a little bit of verb. Let me get over to delay. All right, you got to turn it on. There we go, just a little bit of something. All right, so the deal is, let me get that'll work. So we were talking about note names. One of the things that a lot of people have a hard time with is note names for a range of reasons. Um, I am. It was actually at one of the John Petrucci guitar camps that I kind of had this real revelation that I've spent so much time thinking about things in terms of scale degree numbers. If I play that chord and it's a bunch of G, B's, and D's, and I can see that G is my 1, B is my 3, and D is my 5, and this is G, D, G, B, D, G, and I know G, B, D is 1, 3, 5, and then I know this is 1, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1. So then I know this is 1, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, and I don't necessarily need to know the note names anymore. However, if I know that a G major triad is G, B, D, and I know an A major triad is A, C sharp, and E, and I know this voicing is 1, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, then if 1, 3, 5 at G is G, B, D, and this is 1, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, then I know that's G. I should say, since this is 1, that's G, 5, that's D, 1, that's G, 3, that's B, 5, that's D, and 1 again, that's G. So then if this is 1, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, and that's A, C sharp, and E, 1, A, 5, E, 1, A, 3, C sharp, 5, E, and 1, A, it allows you to kind of get inside the chords at a different level. So one of the things I've been doing, and this is not for the average sane human being, so I invite you to do it because if you're here an hour and 44 minutes into this, thank you for watching. This will appeal to you. By the way, John Zacco, if you're still here, this incorporates a piece of this. Hey, there we go. Yes, indeed. Like I said, there we go. Rick Laird, what's going on? Happy Sunday to you. Matt King, this is for you as well. So the deal is, John, you and I once talked about things that are good for developing alternate picking and changing strings. If you were to take the minor pentatonic scale in groups of 4 notes, ascending, and then descending, which is the meat of what I'm about to talk about, just in terms of note names, then we're going to get to this other thing. You've got this first 4, which is, if you will, 2 and 2. The second 4 is 1, 2, and 1. The gate's grabbing it a little bit. But if you really want to frustrate yourself, but really develop your alternate picking in ways that you're addressing head on, arguably one of the hardest things in terms of string changes, taking these. So I'm doing what I affectionately call foursies. I'm basically going 1, 2, and 1, and then 1, 2, and 1, 1, 2, and 1, 1, 2, and 1, 1, 2, and 1. By that I mean I'm going 1 note on the 6th, 2 on the 5th, and 1 on the 4th, then 1 on the 5th. So I'm basically backtracking. It's kind of if you, in the old days, we used to talk about this guy. Up 2 and back 1. You remember what I'm talking about. So the deal is with these guys, it's basically taking 1, 2, and 1, and then starting on the next ring. But the idea is once you get to where your 1 was, you just backtrack 1 note. So you could say that's up 3 and back 1. And one of those directions will be harder than the other, which is kind of the whole point. And then, yeah, you can do it. Oh, come on, brain on. Oh, come on. It's a G. I'm in G. And then. It's in progress, or it's in process, but that will transform your alternate picking. And the hardest things that we have a tendency to shy away from is where it's splayed, if you will, between a strange grouping of strings. But this guy, getting back to note names, I'm thinking my starting note G, B flat, C, G, F, D. So as I'm adding, and it's kind of doing this thing where I add a 4. And on the way up, I call the lowest note G, B flat, C. And on the way down, G, F, D. I call out the highest note that's the starting note because we're going backwards. B flat, G, F, D, C, B flat, G, F, D. And I'll have to say, you learn your notes a lot better when you're doing that. Okay, so again, getting back to this kind of this chord thing, once you know that that's A, C sharp, and A, it means I can aim for this C sharp and the A, C sharp, E. And you can begin to look for things by note names, A sharp and E, by note names instead of by shapes. And that's a huge deal. Huge deal. Okay, so there we go. There we go. So and so you know the and yeah, if you want to mess yourself up, then as well start. And I have a tendency to start with downstrokes, right? But you can also start out with upstrokes as well, if you really want to mess with your brain. And I have mixed feelings about it. Here's the other thing for everybody before we jump back into the note name thing. I would encourage you, and I'll be talking a lot more about this, to practice not looking at the neck. As in C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. Because once you learn to know where the notes are by name and by sound and by touch, you don't have to look. Even worse is that we have what I refer to as comfort keys, like, I don't know, A. And I'm going to call them comfort licks, where we pick up the guitar and we see the same rutted path, and gosh darn it, we pick it up and we look at the neck and we see that shape or that sequence and we just do it. Versus like I don't know, let's take B flat. Let's do Lohengrin. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. But I can tell you, I know that note is B flat, and that's B flat, and that's B flat, and that's B flat. And you all of a sudden start doing different things when you're not looking at the neck, and your fingers are doing the walking, right? It's just a completely different approach to Lohengrin. I picked a mode that doesn't have. Let's take Lydian. Let's take major. That's it. And you start discovering the neck, you know, and it's not necessarily perfect, but the idea is kind of going, hey, you know, you start working on that. And it's really, it will take your absolute. So here's, you know, and as a subset of that, and before I get back to this circle of fifths thing and the note names, it's another thing that happens is where you're doing bends. Each one of the different guitars has a different bend tension, and it's something that kind of haunts me a lot because I'm toggling between that Les Paul Special, that Flying V, and this Kramer, and the tension you have to bend in tune is different on each guitar. And ideally, you learn the tension of how far you have to bend the string, and it's supposed to kind of like, oh, horseshoes, I'm getting close, right? All right, Now, the key of C. C, hold the D, hold the E, have to F, hold the G, hold the A, hold the B, have to C. The half steps occur between E and F and B and C. All other notes, like C and D, D and E, F and G, G and A and B are a whole step apart. So the D and A, we want to, if we think about that in terms of note names, half step occur between E and F and B and C. Again, those were what? That's right, E and F and B and C. If we turn that into numbers, it's 1, hold a 2, hold a 3, half to 4, hold a 5, hold a 6, hold a 7, half to 1. And the half steps occur between, numerically, 3 and 4, 7 and 1. That's right, 3 and 4 and 7 and 1. So you can remember everything else is a whole step in terms of adjacent notes. That allows us to take that D and A and now map it to an open string. So the great thing about the guitar, because of the way it's laid out, if I were to play that 2 holes and a half, 3 holes and a half, that is, say, the half steps occur between 3 and 4 and 7 and 1, which formulaically is 2 holes and a half, 3 holes and a half, and we shorten it down. 2 holes and a half, 3 holes and a half. Doesn't sound great. In any case, that basically is the key of E, A, D, G, B, and E major being played at the same time. And again, the half steps occurred between 3 and 4 and 7 and 1. Now, why on earth would we want to do this? So I was looking at, and it's kind of a crazy thing. By the way, Rick, if you're still on here, hey, what's going on? Is that Cody? What's happening? Hello, hello, and welcome, welcome. Oh, I love that shot. That's killer. Excellent, excellent, excellent. I love that. Okay. Let me just, and first of all, hello again, if I didn't say so before, Brett. So my buddy Rick posted this. There we go. There we go. This diagram. I'm going to take a quick left turn because he said, oh, blah, 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 the 72 notes. And I was like, it's a very interesting thing that's been done here that I've never seen done before. Because I saw this, and there's certain things that my brain is just wired. I see them, and I have what computer science is referred to as pattern recognition. Most of the time when this is done, it's not done with the different colors, and I just kind of lose my mind. I'm like, if you really want to confuse and anger people, this is the way to get there. And by the way, this just has the flats. It doesn't. Oh, even weirder. So it's got. Oh, this is interesting. It's got, for example, if you take a look at the low E strings going from F to F sharp to G, it doesn't have it listed as an F sharp or a G flat. But yet there are other places on here that they may have a G flat. But that's okay. That's not the point. What I loved about this is normally they're all done in the same color. And as much as and I'm also not a fan of like this crazy mishmash of colors all over the place. However, what was done here is genius. Because what they've done is they've talked about the positions effectively and the note names in each one of those positions. Now, this is one of the things that's a nuanced thing, but this right here is pattern. Woosah. Pattern number 2 of the minor pentatonic. Not position number 2. Now, here's the thing. If you say position number 2 of the minor pentatonic, everybody in the room is going to know what you're going to talking about. But there'll be 1 out of 10 guitar players that'll be climbing the wall in their skin going, it's a pattern. This is second position. Even if I put my second finger there. I should say, sorry, if I put my second finger there, this is second position. Because my first finger would be covering in position the notes at the second fret. That is to say, when you're talking in classical music and we're talking about guitar, this position thing is the fret location of your first finger, even if your first finger isn't fretting per se when that's happening. So the deal is there's patterns and there's positions. This is pattern number 2 of the minor pentatonic, played at 5th position. That way you're not mixing your metaphors. So the reason I say this is that what's been done here that I absolutely love, it's broken it down between 1st position, 5th position, and 9th position. And as it turns out, that's frets 1 through 4, 5 through 9, 5 through 8, I can't count, and 9 through 12. 1 through 4, 5 through 8, 9 through 12. It's genius. I was like, holy cow, because it means if you know what those are in each one of those positions, first position, fifth position, and ninth position, you've unlocked a lot about the guitar. So I just absolutely kind of had a moment about that. So whoever did that, I'm like, oh, way to go. So Chris, thank you so much. Oh, sorry. Rick, thank you so much for sending that through. That said, we're not playing all the notes all the time. But the idea is if we can take the circle of fifths, and I did not have time to pull a diagram, so just take my word for it. I'm going to make, let's just imagine I'm going to do it from my left to right, like the fingerboard, going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The key of C has no sharps or flats. So when we go through the cycle of fifths, it's going from C up a fifth to G, up a fifth to D, and then from up a fifth from D is going to be, I didn't play the right note. C up to G, up to D to A, up to E, and up a fifth to B. Thank you very much. The interesting thing about that is I started thinking about C, up a fifth to G, up a fifth to D, up a fifth to A, up a fifth to E, and like I just saw the pattern. I'm like, how is it that I've never actually caught that? Once you get past C, as you go through the cycle of fifths, cycle of fourths is the descending part of it. Is you are basically circle of fourths is going up in fourths. Cycle of fifths is going up in fifths. My bad. I need to double check on the fourths, but I'm fairly positive. And I will report back next week. So the deal is the circle of fifths, however, you're just going up a fifth, up a fifth, up a fifth. So you go from C to G to D to E to A to E to B. So what's great about that, there's this pattern 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. When you move from the key of C to the key of G, and I'm going to go down as opposed to up because I'm just more comfortable. No, you know what? I'm not. I'm going to go from the key of C to the key of G to D to A to E to B. The key of C, no sharps or flats. The key of G adds 1 sharp at the 7. Move up to the key of D, it retains the sharp at the 7, adds 1 at the 3. You move up to the key of G, retains the sharp that was at the 7 and that was at the 3. And now you go back to the 7, you go down from there, and you add the sharp at the 6 as well. That is to say, you retain the 7 and the 3, you added 1 at the 6. Then you move up to the next key. Again, we started at key of C, no sharps or flats. G was 1 sharp. Key of D was 2. Key of A was 3 at the 7, 3, and 6. Guess is the key of C. E, rather, sorry. We're going to keep the 7, 3, and 6. And now we're going to add 1 at the 2. Then we move up from the key of E to the key of B. We retain the sharp that's at the 7 and the 3 and at the 6 at the 2. And now we add 1 at the 5. So what's neat about this is it really allows you to track where the sharps are if you're paying attention literally by going, okay, I've got 1 at the 7, then I retain the 1 at the 7 and I add 1 at the 3. Then I retain the 1 at the 7 and the 3 and I add 1 at the 6. Then I keep the 1 that's at the 7, 3, and the 6 and I add 1 at the 2. And then I keep the 1 at the 7, 3, 6, 2, and I add 1 at the 5. So it means if you can just start at whatever open string and just blab your way through the musical alphabet, as in G, A, B, C, sorry, I played a sharp for G, A, B, C, D, E, and when I get to the 7th note, I add a sharp. F sharp, G, G, F sharp, E, D, C, B, A, G. Again, that's why I did this thing of mapping. That's E, A, D, G, B, and E major played at the same time. Then when I get to the key of D, I keep the 1 that's at the 7, and I add the sharp on the 3 as well. So I'm just going D, E. My third note is F, so I guess that's F sharp. G, A, B, C sharp, D, D, C sharp, B, A, G, F sharp, E, D. Then we retain the sharps that are at the 7 and the 3, and I add 1 at the 6. So A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, G sharp, F sharp, E, D, C sharp, B, A. We get to E, we retain the sharp that was at the 7 and the 3 and the 6 and the 2. And then we add 1 of the 2, so that's going to be E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E, E, D sharp, C sharp, B, A, G sharp, F sharp, E. Then we get to the key of B. We keep the 1 that was at the 7, 3, 6, 2, and we add 1 at the 5. B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B, B, A sharp, G sharp, F sharp, E, D sharp, C sharp, D. So it is an incredibly efficient way to easily know what those are. Now, there are a lot of people like, oh, just memorize the circle of fifths. Yes, but that doesn't give you the benefit of understanding how and why they play at those frets for those open strings the way they do. And I just kind of, the moment I saw that, just in the same way I saw Rick's pattern here, which I was so thankful that he sent it through. I was like, holy cow, the lights just immediately went on. I was like, oh. And the neat thing is, what I love doing about Theory Geek Thursdays, it allows me to take, in this case, I'm overlaying two things that are relatively disparate and just kind of going, oh, how do we make them work together in a way that hopefully is obvious for people? But most importantly, like any of the hysteria about mapping the note names goes away, because you're like, all right, look, if I can go from the key of C, no sharps or flats, to G, to D, to A, to E, to B, and I just kind of go start at the 7, then I add one at the 3, and then you kind of just successively add one after each of those. It's kind of like, it becomes manageable. Really manageable. Really manageable. Here's the thing. You think about things in terms of rhythm. And, generally speaking, you look at drum music, it's written as attacks, right? Unless you're playing suspended cymbal, for example, right? You know where all the subdivisions are in a measure in a way that your average guitar player doesn't know. That the kick is on the 1, 3, and the and of 3. Snare is on 2 and 4. Hi-hat, eighth notes. Maybe there's a crash on the downbeat of 1. Maybe there's a tom hit on the and of 4. Kick, snare, kick, snare, and. So you understand in the same way that we look at these things, on guitar, and it's just part of the language, right? So there's that. All right, Frank Mbali emphasizes choosing and adhering to if you're going to phrase in seconds, thirds, fifths, ninths. So if you look at your average guitar player, we have a tendency to spend a lot of time in seconds, right? Because of the way and then if we're in pentatonic, it's minor thirds and major seconds. First of all, I think it's always great to try different types of ideas. Boy, my brain. Phrase is where I'm basically 1, 5, 6, right? And you're just kind of taking some sort of motif, and I'm a big fan of motif. So I'm gonna do my own version of that. One of my favorite things to do is pair strings and kind of do little sequences. So that was kind of up, down. And I kind of go up, down, up, down, up, down. Sorry, up. Should be up, down, up, down, up, down. There you go. So if I took that... Sorry. That's why I'm wanting to end there. So sorry. So I'm changing it a little bit. But the idea is that basic... It's one of the types of sequences I like to cut and paste, right? This is, by the way, where it's really good to know that is C, D, E, F, sharp G, A, B, C, and it's F sharp G, A, B, C, D, E, and... So I took that sequence. I didn't quite do the ending right, but... Sorry. And then I cut and paste that sequence instead of going. I took that and splayed it. Sorry, that's a C. There we go. And then did that same sequence across that. So the concept of kind of these harmonic sequences that are repeating is a great one. One could argue that there where we got thirds, but maybe he's talking about. All right. So there I'm stacking that in thirds. So I'm playing a G major triad, B minor triad, and a D major triad. All right. So kind of along that. And again, cutting and pasting these patterns. I had a dear friend in college, music major, love you, bro, who would wrinkle his nose when I played and said, it all sounds like scales. And I started playing different intervals from that point on. So I think this is one of the big reasons. Somebody write a note name in the chat for me, would you? Give me a note name. And thanks, Brett. Really, really, really appreciate the input. Like that photo, too. Give me a note name. Somebody. Something not stupidly obvious. Something. Anybody. Bueller. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. So, give me, and so, well, I got A first, so I'm going to roll with it. Thank you, Brett. But I tell you what, somebody give me a mode name. Something other than, but I can take major, but give me a mode name. Thank you. All right, I'm gonna actually. So first of all, we got. So I'm actually going to move. Chris, first of all, thank you. So let me stop the train here for a quick second. The whole point of what we're doing here is as follows. We got lots of. Well, thank you, everybody. Much appreciated. When we look at the guitar neck, we have a tendency to see what I call comfort keys. So we just kind of see the place that we kind of go, and our hand like a magnet just kind of can't help but going there. Not only do we go to that key, we then play the same repetitive sequences because we see those notes splayed out on the neck. I am a Dorian because I'm spending a lot of time. Talk about cut and paste sequences, right? You know, I see that key. The problem is I look at the neck and I see that key. As opposed to, and I'm going to, what was it, C sharp? What was it? Oh, Bobby. Hey, Bobby, what's going on, my man? There we go. So C sharp is a, and one of the other things I'm getting used to doing is being able to kind of find the note by kind of walking up to it as an A, hold a B, hold a C sharp. And getting better at feeling. I think 3 weeks ago I did the 1 4 1 4 5 4 1, and just kind of I hadn't actually practiced it. All right, we were going 1 4 5 4 1 as opposed to 1 4 5 4 1. I just kind of went. Let me practice. Right, that guitar was Gibson scale. This one's Fender scale. As opposed to 1 4 5 4 1 4 5 4 1 1 5 4. But the point being is getting used to finding where that note. So we started off with doing. So. right, so the whole point is none of that was watching, and I can almost assure you, if I picked up the guitar, I wouldn't have played any of that. I would have gone back to the key. I don't know. Would have gone to A Dorian. Thank you, Chris. No, I'm not fighting you. I love everything you do here, my friend, and then some. But the point being is the random note and mode, like, let's make something happen. I don't know. And the other thing about the guitar is the different registers have completely different vibes. So, like, I might have gone. I cheated, sorry. All right, I looked. Sorry, I cheated. But the point being is when you start playing exclusively by touch, you just do stuff you wouldn't do when you're looking at the neck. And I'm like, gosh, what have I been missing? And more importantly, what have I been allowing my students to miss? Because it was probably 35 years ago, reasonably. One of my students said, is it okay to look at the neck? I was like, sure. They're practicing. I was like, I wish I could reel back all that time and go, well, yes and no. It's great to be able to go, B, C, D, E, F, or G, A, B, B, A, G, F sharp, E, D, C, B, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C, D, E, E, D, C, B, A, G, F sharp, E, I played an F sharp, and be able to map out the notes of a particular key with the open strings, right? But at the same time, be able to go, E, F sharp, G, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C. Sorry, I need to be playing minor, E minor, if you will, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, E, D, E, E, D, C, B, A, G, F sharp, E, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, E, D, C, B. Sorry. All right, so that is the benefit is if I can play the notes right, and I can say, oh, I'm playing Gibson scale normally, and I'm playing on a Fender scale. But E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, E, D, C, the. Once you know where the notes. I know that's F sharp, G, A, B. I'm thinking about my starting note. This is kind of what I was talking about before. G, B flat, C, G, F, D. When you begin to start thinking about your starting notes as G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, and that's B, A, G, F, so on and so forth. It really kind of allows you to put a different context to your knowledge, your ear, and your fingers. And I'm like, oh, there's my biggest growth as a player and arguably my most musical liquidity. By the way, I have this thing, and I'm going to invite you to become part of it. It's called the Doppler Dictionary. And I have all these crazy terms that I've added to it. And you're welcome to add that term because they're things that when I say them, they mean something very specific to me. And I encourage you to join in. So I just added the phrase musical liquidity. That whole point of kind of like, you know what? I'm able to just kind of open the tap and the stuff pours out. Because I think everybody here knows what it's like to open the tap and kind of like, it's not even a dribble. Where it just kind of like it feels like it's work versus kind of like, whew, just kind of pours out. Very important. All right. Bobby, what's going on, my man? All right, hang on. This is going to be tiny for anybody looking from afar. I should have named my kids after mode names. That's funny. I walk around a local reservoir, and this woman had these 3 dogs, and I said, which one's the middle dog? So, in any case. All right, that's going to be tiny for anybody looking on a mobile device. Okay. Good morning, Doug the Boogeyman Doppler. Going back to what you said about not looking at the neck, one of my favorite subjects, because I think for us, there's so much there that's untapped. Looking at the neck gets you into thinking a mode with all the information thinking affords. Ooh, ooh, going deep. You didn't want the thinking mode, and so I will say this now. I'm going to pause there because yes and no. Because the thing is that a minute ago I did this. There I'm thinking that up, down, up, down, up, 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 down. Although I didn't end up with an up, down. I bent it with a bend that was flat. But the point being is that cut and paste. That's not necessarily the most musical. I wouldn't have played that by ear, but I love the sound of sequences, and I love cutting and pasting sequence, and that is in many ways a visually driven thing. That is to say, I wasn't looking for that particular sequence sonically. That's just kind of where my hand fell, again, because of how I see the notes in the key of A Dorian and, its relative modes up and down the neck. I'm not going to take my own bait and talk about, yes, I am. I need to take a quick pause on that. So in Theory Geek Thursday this week, I talked about, if you know that this is G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, G, F sharp, E, D, C, B, A, G. And the Dorian mode has a flat 3 compared to a natural 3, and a flat 7 compared to a natural 7. If this is G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, then this is G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F, G. So once you know the note names of the root major scale, and the formula of whatever mode you might want to play at that same root, then it becomes really easy to calculate the mode names, the note names of the mode at that spot. This is one of the big reasons, and I need to back up at least one step, because I've had different students over the years. The circle of fifths, circle of fifths, and I'm like, it's an interesting thing. It's memorizing without a guitar context, and that again, if I were to think about the mode formulas, Dorian flat 3, flat 7, Phrygian flat 2, 3, 6, and 7, Lydian sharp 4, Mixolydian flat 7, minor flat 3, 6, and 7, Locrian flat 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7. That's a very non kind of musical context. That's just kind of like, wow, spreadsheet, right? So one could argue that memorizing the key signatures from the circle of fifths would be the same way. The challenge is, how do we apply that on guitar? The bigger point is, if I'm playing, for example, only a genius like Joe Satriani would think about putting those 3 chords in the same song. First album's like, yes. Not of this earth, right? And you're just like, what a genius. By the way, those chords look familiar? So the point being is being able to apply these things and kind of go, okay, when and where does the textbook make sense for things that are smart things to know textbook-wise, versus kind of like when and where do we kind of go, maybe that could get us into trouble because contextually that may not be the reveal we're looking for on guitar. For example, Bobby, this is for you. What chord am I going to next? Exactly. So if I were to strictly interpret this chord, and this chord, A Mixolydian, D Mixolydian, and E Mixolydian. So at A, all right, normally I would be much more inclined to play something. Now the interesting thing over that chord. Point is this. I'm not thinking about what the relative major of D mixolydian or E mixolydian is. Not only that, I'm thinking about, hey, my tonal center. What am I going to play? A mixolydian. A Dorn. A major. Sorry, bench sharp. Okay. I said A major a little long. All right, not brilliantly executed, but you get the idea. It's like, so the danger that many guitar players get into is like, oh, what's the relative major? And this is where living at the circle of fifths gets you into trouble, because when you're playing modal music, whether it's blues, which is modal music, whether it's, Joe Satriani, Not on This Earth, it's changing based on the tonal center. And so if you're running home to your mama on the major scale, it's going to get you into trouble. That's not to say it's not good to know what the relative major scale is, but we're thinking the wrong thing harmonically. All right. You want to get lost in music? Hello, thank you. Want to get lost in that rock and roll? And all right. And you want to be listening to other musicians, and you can't be distracted by looking at your instrument. Many more reasons not to look. Another benefit is you begin to visualize the fretboard just like touch typing and not looking at the keyboard. Also, not only you make a connection with other musicians, and you can make a connection with the audience, you can't make it if you're focused on the neck. Or at the picking end for that matter, just something I learned from the Justin guy. Okay, well, I copied that. That was worthy of much praise. Yes and amen. Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Rick. Appreciate you tuning in. I hope it was a small procedure, and I appreciate you letting us know. Much healing to you, my friend. God bless. Have a great weekend. Kids named The Beach Show in Atlanta. I talked to Fire, right. He was selling the merch. That's awesome. He's lovely. Also had a 10-minute conversation with Thomas. He's awesome. That's great. Yep. Oh, that's great. Fantabulous. I tell all my students the very thing that makes guitar hard to learn, its overlapping of notes, is its strengths and its attacks. And that's so funny. So I looked up timbre. So technically, the word is exactly as you spelled it, Timbre, but it's pronounced timbre. So you can add that to your that's not really a member of the Doppler dictionary, but you can certainly add that, because I thought that was nuanced. And yes, and yes, and yes. And yeah, it depends on how you learn to digest this thing. Like, I got a lesson that starts in 2 minutes, so I'm gonna have to mosey on. Nice to learn some theory and at the same time get some good ear cleaning. Thank you, Adrian. I love that photo, by the way. And I was looking at the pedal you very kindly gave me just yesterday. Thank you for that. Trust you're doing great. All right. In any case, all right. You know what, folks? I have a lesson that now starts in 1 minute. I would love to. Danny and Brian. Danny is a former Danny Jones, former student of Joe Satriani, great player, kind of a blues rock, but with some shred in there. So he's playing second on the bill. I'm opening the show, and then Brian Kehoe is an absolute maniac, crazy guitar player, crazy frontman, great musician. It's going to be a great show. We're also going to do a little jam. The three of us will be doing that, so it's going to be a lot of fun. By the way, anybody that's in the Bay Area, I'm playing at Antlers Bar and Grill in Pinole, California, the town where Kirk Hammett grew up. And I go on at 8 o'clock. It's a free show. I think they make their money at the bar. Albert, thank you. I'm looking forward to seeing you in person. And everybody, hey, I gotta go. Brett, thank you. I will keep this here so I can look at it. I gotta go teach a lesson. Everybody, make it a great one. So much fun today. Holy cow. This may be the best one yet. So thanks so much. Make it a great weekend. See you soon. Cheers.